Hey everyone, welcome back to New Year, New Hobby Challenge. And today we are going to make Sweet Sunshine. This one is one of my favorite designs. So go ahead and start painting your surface. Your background color, I'll be using black. Today we are going to work on the placement of our dots to change the design and not centering them, and that'll give our design a different look, which is kind of cool. And I've been so impressed with everything in the group. You guys are doing so good, and I'm so excited to share this with you. I absolutely love dotting. It's my passion. So before we get started, I've got all my tools set out here. I've got the same paint colors I've been using all week. I've got my surface, again, painted black, and then I used a pencil. I found my center, and I made my north, south, east, and west. So feel free to do that to help with your placement. I've got the sample here, Sweet Sunshine. So this one has more of a yellow focus, and I'm gonna start with my center dot. So I'm gonna get my 10mm tool and my yellow paint. And I'm going to make my center dot right there in the middle. Just give it a little kiss. Mine was a little off center, so I re-smushed it. Now it's a little bit bigger. Sometimes you have to be careful of doing that. But again, I mentioned you can always kind of touch up those little mistakes with if you've got a little pencil. That's what I use to do that. All right, so we've got our center dot. If you hear crunching, that's my dog Eddie. Whenever I do videos, do lives, he decides it's dinner time. I don't know what it is about me doing this that makes him realize it's time to eat, but it's like every single time he does that. Yeah, I'm talking about you. It's okay. You can eat your dinner. All right, next we're gonna add this row of orange circles around. For that, I'm gonna use my smaller stylus tool, the 1.5mm end. It's the larger end of my smaller stylus tool. Orange paint, and I'm gonna start with my north, south, east, and west, like always. Add one in the middle of each of those to make 8. And then one in the middle of each of those to make 16. Remember to dip and dot each time. You'll end up with 16 of those. Then I'm going to switch to my largest stylus, which is 3mm. We're going to use magenta paint, and I'm going to make one dot centered in between each orange dot. Remember, these are a little bigger than the previous row, so make sure you leave enough room. So we're going to center that right in between 2 of those orange. And I like to, as I work around my circle, kind of skip one and go all the way around, and then go back and fill in the spaces. I feel like that helps me keep them just a little more even, but not something you have to do. If you prefer to do it the other way and just do one after the other, you can. There's more than one way to make a sandwich. All right, next what we're gonna do, if you wanna get a pencil to help you visualize and add in some marks in between, that might be helpful for this design. You do not have to do that if you're good at visualizing. But what I'm gonna do now is get my 6mm tool. We're gonna use yellow paint, and I'm gonna add 1 dot in the spaces. So there's a line that goes in between 2 pink dots. Can you see that? So my north and south go in between 2 of those pink dots. What I'm gonna do is make a yellow dot in the spaces, but not on the line, if that makes sense. If you're confused and you make it on the line, that's fine too. Your design will just be off. Instead of looking like this, it'll look like this, which is fine. It'll still be pretty. But it's every other opening between the magenta gets a yellow dot. We'll end up with 8 of those. I don't know if I've explained that properly. But so if I did every other opening, what I mean is that space between the magenta. So not this one, not this one, I did this one, not this one, I did this one. I hope that makes sense. Sometimes I can't find my words when I want to explain things. Next, we're going to make these swipes, these orange swipes, and there's 1 swipe in between each yellow dot. So I'm going to get my 3mm tool. Visually, I want to be beyond this yellow dot about the same size as the yellow dot. So if you want to make a mark, you can. You don't have to. Sometimes it's helpful just to have a visual of where to start, approximately. All right, in order to make my swipe, I'm going to dip into orange, make a dot. I'm going to double dip this one, and then slowly pull inward. These go on the line, so dip, double dip, and slow pull. Dip, double dip, oops, slow pull. Dip, double dip, and slow pull. Dip, double dip, slow pull. Dip, double dip, and slow pull. You can see one of the things I joke with in my own head as I'm dotting is that sometimes when I make swipes, they'll be a little, I don't always make them straight. And part of my problem, especially when I'm recording or going live, is I'll look at the screen instead of looking at my stone. But I'm over here giggling in my head because I feel like my swipes kind of look like carrots. They've got a little wobble to them. So we're going to end up with 8 of those. Then I'm going to switch to my small stylus, the large end, so it's 1.5mm. We are going to add a dot and a swipe around each yellow circle. So I'm going to start with my magenta dot. So I'm using the large end of my small stylus, 1.5mm, and I'm going to put a dot right in the center. Then what I'm going to do is on each side, I'm going to pull a swipe. So I'm going to dip in, same tool, 1.5mm, and I'm going to pull a swipe to the right, and then a swipe to the left, to the left. What's wrong with me? And then I'm going to move on to the next one. Go nice and slow with your swipes or your swishes. We're using a small tool, so these will be nice and small. All right. Next, what we're going to do is create a crown on top, and a crown is a set of 3 dots, and I want these 3 dots to be the same size. I've got a little more room on my stone today than I had on my sample, so I'm going to go up a size. You can either use the large end of your small dotting tool, 1.5 millimeters. I'm going to go up a size. I'm going to go to my 2.5 millimeters just because I know that I've got some extra room on here. And this is where I say you can change you can modify your design just based on what you're working with. All right, so we're going to add a crown, and a crown is a set of 3 dots of the same size. So I like to do my center dot first, and so I'm going to find that pink dot, and I'm going to go out a little bit because I need room for my other 2 dots, and I'm going to do my center dot first, making sure I leave plenty of room for 2 dots closer. Remember to dip and dot each time. I know I say that a lot, but for a lot of new daughters, that is a very frustrating part of the experience, is learning that habit. And then once you have all of the end of the triangle, you're going to go back and add 2 dots inside. Dip and dot, dip and dot, dip and dot, dip and dot. And so you go all the way around with those. All right, next we are going to get our 8mm tool, and we're going to use orange paint. And at the end of our orange swipes, we're going to add an orange dot. Remember, especially on these larger tools, you got to go up over the edge of that rod. Get plenty of paint on there before you give it a kiss. So after you've added 8 of those, next we're going to go to our 3mm stylus tool. That's the largest one. I'm going to add a yellow dot in the middle. We end up with 8 of those. And here's where I had a little bit of fun with this design. So I used a combination of dots and swipes. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to use my 2.5mm tool and magenta paint. And I'm going to add one swipe to the left of each dot. Each orange dot gets surrounded by a magenta swipe. So you dip, touch the surface, and pull gently around, nice and slow. I'm going to use the same tool, 2.5mm, and this time on the other side I'm going to dot. I'm going to walk the dots. So I'm going to dip and then count out my first set. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I'm going to do 4. 4 looks about even to me. So on each one I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if you need 5 dots to make it look even, you can do 5 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, next, what we're going to do is we're going to add a center dot with our 3mm tool and magenta paint. So we've got a yellow center dot here. I'm going to add another one with magenta, 3mm. I didn't quite have enough paint on my tool that time. And we go all the way around, so 8 of those. Next, I'm going to add a swipe on the right side with yellow and my 3mm tool. I'm going to double dip for this one because it's got a little farther to go. So I'm going to start with a dot right there, and then dot and swipe. Remember to go nice and slow with your swipes. And this time we're going to the right with our 3mm tool. double dotting helps you pull out that swipe just a little farther. So that's why I do that on the longer ones. Then, just like we did with that magenta right next to it, we're going to dot the other side. And so I'm going to dip my tool, 3mm tool, and I'm going to count the dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 5 looks balanced, so I'm going to do 5 on every one. And so you walk the dots on the other side. You finish each petal by walking the dots on the other side. Then the next step is we're going to finish the crown here. So we're going to do it the same way we did this crown. I'm going to add another pink dot as my center first. Leave a little bit of room so that you can come back through and add one on each side without them being too squashed. This is the 3mm stylus tool. Then once you have all of those, you're going to dip and dot one on the right and dip and dot one on the left. And it makes a little set of 4 at the top there. So dip one on the right and dip one on the left. Oops. And then go all the way around with that same pattern. One on the right, dip, one on the left. All right, now that our bottom dots are completed for this design, we need to do top dots. In order to do top dots, it's pretty important that your design is dry. And so most of mine for this layer is pretty dry. I don't see any shininess other than in some of these little end dots, which I'm not dotting on top of. If your design is not dry, go ahead and pause the video, come back in a few minutes to do your top dots. So I'm gonna start with my center top dot and my 6mm tool. So I'm going to add an orange dot in the middle here with my 6mm tool. Then I'm going to get my 3mm stylus I'm going to use purple paint for this, and I'm going to add a dot on my yellow, but instead of adding them in the middle like we've done on other designs, I'm going to add them closest to the center. And you'll see the placement of that dot kind of changes the look a little bit. On other pieces, when we dot right in the center, when you dot in the middle like this, it pulls it inward. It just tells your eye to go in a different direction. So it gives it a different look. That's what we're playing with today with these top dots. And then next, I am going to use my 6mm tool, and where we have these orange dots at the center of the petals, I'm going to add a teal top dot, and again I'm going to off center it. I'm going to put it close to the center, or facing center side of the dot, I guess is what I'm trying to say there. So 1 6mm dot on each of those oranges. Now, when you finish this step, again, you're going to want this to dry a little bit, so pause the video, come back in about 5 minutes, and we're going to add one more set of dots. And ready to go. And so I'm going to get my smaller stylus. I'm going to use the larger end, 1.5mm, and my magenta paint. And right in the center, I'm going to add a magenta dot. I'm going to wipe that tool off because I'm going to use the same tool, 1.5mm, and some teal paint, and then I'm going to add a dot in this yellow purple combination, again off center, facing the center of the circle. So we're going to do 8 of those. And then I'm going to switch to my larger stylus, 3mm. And in the center of this petal, we have the orange teal combination. I'm going to add a purple dot in there. And again, off center, closest to the center of the piece. So one of those in each. All right, that is the Sweet Sunshine design. I can't wait to see what you make today. Make sure that you post in the group, and then if you want to enter the giveaway, post on your personal Facebook page and tag me at Lynn, Pugh Artist, and that will get you entered in the giveaway for a 6-pack of paints. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Tomorrow we're going to paint this last design. This is called Lots of Love, and I love it. So I will see you again tomorrow. Have a great night, everyone.